It's the early 1980s. I'm Melba, 32, an on-call midwife assigned to some of the most remote towns in Cameron Sur. We didn't have much back then. No stable phones, no easy transport, no proper facilities. But we had each other, and I had my calling. As a health worker, I was in charge of implementing basic health practices, monitoring illnesses, giving out meds, and most of all, assisting pregnant women when it was time to bring new life into the world. Most of the time, I was the only medical presence people had, helping a child take its first breath, seeing the tears, the smiles, the relief in a mother's eyes when she hears that first cry. That never gets old. I love what I do. But sometimes, love for the job isn't enough to prepare you for what lies just beyond the veil. One day, a couple visited me at the health center. They said they were from a nearby town under my jurisdiction. The husband introduced himself. "I'm Paul," he said, "and this is my wife, Anna." She looked pale, tired, already in her second trimester. I offered them seats and told Paul he shouldn't let Anna travel far on foot just for checkups. I'd visit them instead, regularly, weekly for now, and more frequently as she nears labor. He nodded in agreement. Everything seemed normal. At first. Weeks passed. Each visit, Anna seemed more withdrawn, quiet. Paul, on the other hand, was overly watchful, always alert, like he was expecting something. Their house, a humble nipa hut, felt increasingly heavy with unspoken fear. The air around it seemed to hum with an invisible tension, a stillness that was anything but peaceful. I'd often find myself glancing over my shoulder on the walk there, a prickle of unease creeping up my spine even before I knew why. Then one evening, as I was walking to their town for another checkup, I noticed a crowd gathered at the side of the road. There was tension in the air. A palpable fear clung to the villagers, thicker than the humid night. "What's going on?" I asked a bystander, a woman I recognized from the market. Her eyes, wide with fright, darted to the rooftops before settling on me. "Someone saw a big black figure on their rooftop. Said it moved fast, crawling." She was screaming, pointing at it. That's when we all came out. The way she spoke, her voice barely a whisper, sent a shiver down my arms. "Scary," I replied, my voice low, trying to sound calmer than I felt. She wrung her hands. "You going to check up on Anna?" I nodded. She gave a nervous smile, her gaze still fixed on the unseen, dark corners of the night. "Okay, stay safe, huh?" The warning was clear, even if unspoken. "Be careful, Melba. There's something out here." When I got to Anna and Paul's house, the atmosphere inside was just as strained. I told them about the commotion, the fear that had gripped the villagers. Paul glanced at Anna, a silent communication passing between them, then looked at me, his face grim. "We know," he said quietly, his voice a gravelly whisper. "It's been happening more frequently now." He leaned in, his voice almost a whisper, as if the very walls had ears. "I fear it's a tick-tick." A chill, colder than any evening breeze, ran down my spine. The word, a name whispered in hushed tones across generations, brought with it a cascade of chilling tales. The tick-tick, a creature of folklore, a harbinger of dread, said to prey on the unborn. He continued, his eyes scanning the shadowed corners of their small home. "We hear the sound it makes. Tick, tick, tick. Every night. That's why I always keep my eye-tock near the bed." He gestured to a gleaming long blade propped against the wall. "I've been sprinkling salt on every window, and we've hung garlic around the house." His words clung to me like a damp, oppressive shadow, a grim premonition of something unspeakable. I finished Anna's checkup with trembling hands, my medical instincts warring with a primal fear I hadn't felt since childhood ghost stories. Her heartbeat, normally a comforting rhythm, now seemed to thrum with a frantic urgency. The baby nestled within her felt like a beacon in the darkness, a tiny, vulnerable life that this malevolent force sought to claim. I left as quickly as I could, the urgency in my steps, not just for safety, but for escape from the encroaching dread. The journey back home was long. During the 80s, there were barely any roads, no tricycles at night, no streetlights, just endless trees and tall grass lining a narrow dirt path that twisted through the dense, unforgiving jungle. The darkness was absolute, punctuated only by the distant chirping of crickets and the rustling of leaves. Every shadow seemed to writhe, every rustle a potential threat. My mind replayed Paul's words, the chilling tick, tick, tick echoing in my thoughts. 5 minutes away from my town, I heard it. Tick, tick, tick. It was faint at first, a barely perceptible sound carried on the wind. But it was there. My blood ran cold. I froze, every nerve ending screaming in protest. The wind howled behind me, a mournful cry that seemed to amplify the silence, sending cold air across the back of my neck. I remembered an old saying, a chilling whisper from my grandmother's lips. If the sound gets louder, it means the tick-tick is far. But if it gets fainter, it's close. I held my breath, every muscle tense, every fiber of my being straining to discern the subtle shift in the sound. The seconds stretched into an eternity, each tick of an imaginary clock amplifying my terror. The sound faded. Tick, tick. No, it was getting farther, which meant it was getting closer. Suddenly, adrenaline, pure and unadulterated, surged through me. My heart hammered against my ribs, a desperate drumbeat urging me forward. I ran. I ran like my life depended on it, like the darkness itself was a tangible predator at my heels. Branches, unseen in the inky blackness, slapped at my arms, leaving angry welts. The tall grass scratched my legs, but I didn't stop, didn't falter. I didn't dare look back. My lungs burned, my legs ached, but the fear of what was behind me propelled me onward, faster than I thought possible. I didn't stop until I burst into our house, pale as a ghost, gasping for breath, the image of that elongated, shadowy arm already forming in the deepest corners of my mind. My husband, startled by the commotion, rushed to me, his face etched with alarm. "What happened?" he demanded, his voice laced with urgency. I could barely speak, my throat tight with terror, my voice hoarse from exertion. And then, I whispered one word, the chilling syllable, barely audible. Tick-tick. The dread was infectious. He knew. He understood the profound fear that word invoked in our community. A few nights later, the pounding on our door was frantic, desperate. It was Anna's nephew, his face streaked with tears and sweat. "She's in labor. Please come quickly," he pleaded, his voice cracking with urgency. My heart leaped into my throat, a mixture of professional duty and renewed fear. I grabbed my kit, my hands shaking slightly, and we rode a rented tricycle back to their town, the darkness of the night magnified by the speed of our journey. As we neared their house, the scene that greeted me was unsettling. The house was buzzing with people, but not with the usual joyous anticipation of a new birth. Instead, a grim, determined silence hung in the air. Men, their faces grim, stood guard outside holding etox, the same type Paul kept by his bed, their eyes scanning the rooftops and treetops with flashlights, their beams cutting through the oppressive darkness like desperate searching fingers. "What's going on?" I asked Anna's nephew, my voice barely a whisper. "Uncle Paul asked the neighbors to watch the house," he said, his young voice trembling. "He fears the tick-tick might attack while she's giving birth." I nodded, a cold knot tightening in my stomach. I understood. The fear was real, palpable, shared by every soul present. Inside, the room was filled with a nervous energy. Anna, pale and racked with pain, lay on a mat, her breath coming in ragged gasps. I moved with practiced efficiency, my training kicking in, a desperate attempt to suppress the rising tide of dread. I sterilized my tools, laid out clean cloths, and gave instructions, my voice as calm and steady as I could make it. I asked Paul to hold Anna's hand, his face a mask of worry and determination. I asked both mothers, Anna's and Paul's, to assist when needed, their eyes wide with apprehension. At around 1 a.m., Anna was ready. The sounds of her labor filled the small room, raw and primal. "Push, Anna. Just like that. One more. I see the head," I urged, my voice encouraging, my focus intently on the miracle unfolding before me. Everyone leaned in, their breaths held, their hopes centered on this new life struggling to emerge. I extended my arms, gloved and ready to receive the baby, my entire being concentrated on the task at hand. Then, I noticed another hand near mine, slowly reaching in. It was long, slender, with unnaturally pale skin, and it seemed to materialize from the shadows, distinct from the hands of Anna, Paul, or their mothers. My professional instinct, honed by years of delivering babies, was to ensure no one interfered unless necessary. I said, "It's okay, I got this. No need to assist." I thought it was simply someone being overly eager or perhaps disoriented by the intensity of the moment. But the hand stayed there. Closer, closer. A cold dread began to seep into my bones. I glanced at Anna's mother. Both her hands were holding a clean blanket, tightly clutched to her chest. I turned to Paul's mother. She was holding a basin of warm water, her knuckles white. My breath caught in my throat, a silent scream of recognition. I slowly turned my gaze back toward the baby and followed the hand. The arm was impossibly long, stretched out from the bedroom doorway, 3, maybe 4 meters away. It defied all logic, all anatomy. It was thin, almost skeletal, yet it moved with a chilling grace. And there, standing in the shadows just beyond the door, was a woman, silent, still. Her eyes, two dark pools in the dim light, were fixed on Anna, on the emerging life. Her arms stretched across the room like something not of this world, unnaturally elongated, reaching for the baby. It was the embodiment of every whispered fear, every chilling tale. Paul's mother, her gaze following mine, saw it too. A guttural scream tore from her throat, a sound of pure, unadulterated terror that echoed through the small house, alerting the men outside. They burst into the room, weapons in hand, their flashlights cutting through the gloom, illuminating the horror. "What is it?" they demanded, their voices laced with a mixture of fear and aggression. "She was right there," I shouted, my voice hoarse, pointing a trembling finger at the doorway. But when we looked again, she was gone, as if she had never been there, vanished into the very shadows from which she had emerged. The elongated arm, the silent woman, all gone. The men scoured the area, flashlights sweeping rooftops and treetops, their shouts echoing in the night. But there was nothing. No trace, no sign of the elusive creature. It was as if the night had swallowed her whole. Anna gave birth safely to a healthy baby girl, a beacon of innocent life in the wake of such terror. The baby's first cry, normally a moment of unbridled joy, was met with a stunned silence, a lingering chill that permeated the air. But no one spoke of joy that night, only fear, a deep, unsettling fear that burrowed into the hearts of everyone present. Word spread like wildfire. The tick-tick encounter became the talk of the town and neighboring towns, a warning to all expectant mothers to stay vigilant, to keep their homes protected, and to all children, to never wander once the sun has set, for the night holds horrors beyond comprehension. The tick-tick was never caught. No one knows who that woman was. No one knows where she went. Maybe she's still out there, waiting, listening. If you think you're safe just because you hear the sound getting louder, think again. This is just one of the many stories I carry from the years I served as an on-call midwife. If you want to hear more real, spine-chilling stories like this one, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe. Squid you later.